Lesson 3-2, simplify and evaluate algebraic expressions. So in this video, we're going to identify parts of an expression and then evaluate them when they're giving us the value of each of the variables. So some vocabulary words. When they're talking about terms, they're talking about groups of numbers and or variables separated by plus or minus signs. Now, when it comes to the plus or minus signs, if you count the number of plus or minus signs, the number of terms is always going to be one more than the total number of plus or minus signs. Now, if there's an expression in parentheses, like 4 minus 7, or 4x minus 7 in parentheses, that whole thing is considered one term because that's grouped together. Then we have numerical coefficients, and numerical coefficients are just the number part of a term that contains a variable. So if I said 4x, this would be a term. The 4 is the numerical part. That's the number part of the term. The literal coefficient is the variable part of that term. So if I said 4x, again, the x is the literal coefficient. And then constants are those terms that are just numbers, then there's no variables in it. So let's just say if I had x plus 4, that's two terms, but this 4 is not attached to any letters, so that would be considered a constant. And then like terms are just those terms that can be combined because they have the same variable and the same exponents. So if I had 1n plus 2n, this would be a total of 3n. Because they both have the same variables, I just take the coefficient. Remember, there's a 1 in front of here. But if I had n squared plus 2n, I cannot solve those. That would have to stay as n squared plus 2n. And the reason is because the first term had n squared, has a square in it, the other n does not. So let's take a look at some examples. Here we want to identify the number of terms and in the expression, and then what is the numerical, what's the literal coefficients, and then what are the constants. So the number of terms. So we have one group, two groups, three groups, and you see I have two plus signs here, and it's always one more, so I have three terms. And then the numerical, so I'm going to do NC for numerical coefficients. That would be the 3, and that would be 6. And then the literal coefficients, the literal coefficients would be xy squared and x. And then we have our constants. I'll say that they're c, that would just be 1. Next, we got the number of terms in there. This one, so we have one group, two groups, three groups, so we got 3 terms. The numerical coefficient, this would be 4, and I'm going to make that -3, so I'm just going to keep the sign with it. Then we got the literal coefficients. The literal coefficients is t cubed in r. And then the constants would just be a -5. The second type of problems is we're going to combine like terms. So here I got an n squared and I have an n squared here. So I can combine those. So -2n squared plus 11n squared is 9n squared. So don't change the variables or the exponents. Just add or subtract the coefficients in front. And then I have -4n. I cannot combine those because one has a square and the other one doesn't. This next one, I got a -7 and a -4. I can combine those, and that gives me a -11. This next one, xy squared, and this one is x squared y, so they're not the same. So I can put those as separate ones. That'd be plus xy squared minus 5x squared y. Next, we're going to evaluate these. So here I'm going to put 7 in for a. So I got 7 plus 3 times a, which is 7, times b, which is -2. divide all that by 7 minus a negative 2 cubed. So this top part, 21 times negative 2 is negative 42. Negative 42 plus 7 is negative 35. Divide that by 7 minus negative 2 is 9. 9 cubed is 729. And so that one, we cannot simplify that any further. So that would be our answer there. Next one, we got a negative, and then I have 1/2. And I need to square that times our r, which is 6, plus 4 times q, which is negative 3/4, plus 2 times p, which is 1/2, squared, times r, which is 6, minus 12 times q, which was negative 3/4. And simplify that. Half squared is 1/4. 1/4 times 6 is 3/2, and times negative 1, so it's a negative 3/2. 4 times negative 3/4 is negative 3, so minus 3. 1/2 squared is 1/4, times 6 is 3/2. 3/2 times 2 is 3, so plus 3. Minus negative 12, or 12 times negative 3 is negative 36. Negative 36 divided by 4 is negative 9. So if I'm subtracting a negative 9, I'm really adding 9. So now the 3's, negative 3 plus 3 is 0. So now I have negative 3/2. And I'm going to change 9 into halves, so that's plus 18/2, because 18 divided by 2 is 9. And 18 minus 3 is 15. Divided by 2 is still 15/2. Or you can say 7 1/2, or as a decimal, it would be 7.5. And our last ones here, x is negative 0.3, so I got negative 6 times negative 0.3 squared, minus 2 times 0.3, negative 0.3, plus 0.3 to the 4th power. And I'm going to put this on my calculator here. So we have negative 6, and we're multiplying that by parentheses negative 0.3, and I'm going to square that, and it's going to be minus 2 times parentheses negative 0.3 and parentheses, and then I have plus parentheses negative 0.3 and parentheses, and then we're going to raise that to the 4th power. And that's going to give us 0.0681. Let's see if we can put that as a fraction. That one will allow us on their calculator for that one, so we'll just put it as 0.0681. And our last one here, we have 1.5. And we're going to multiply that by 5, plus 3.5 times negative 4, minus 2 minus 3 times 5, minus 1.5 times negative 4. And we'll put this on our calculator as well. So we got 1.5 times 5 plus 3.5 times negative 4 minus 2 minus 3 times 5 minus 1.5 times negative 4. That's going to give us a negative 17.5. So that is our lesson on simplifying and evaluating algebraic expressions.